Christmas, a time for warmth, joy, and togetherness, a season where hearts are full and families gather to celebrate love and connection. But for me, last Christmas was none of that. It wasn't the weather or the absence of gifts that made it unbearable. It was the discovery of a truth so devastating that it unraveled everything I held dear. A truth that shattered a friendship I believed was unbreakable. That night, a single moment of vulnerability exposed a web of betrayal, heartbreak, and pain I never could have anticipated. What was supposed to be a time of celebration became a turning point in my life. A stark reminder of how fragile trust can be, and how the unintended consequences of our actions can leave scars deeper than we realize. This isn't a story of festive cheer or miracles. It's a story about love, loss, and the pain we sometimes inflict, even without meaning to. It's about how a season meant for joy can uncover the truths we're least prepared to face. Let me take you back to that Christmas, a night of laughter that turned to silence, and a moment that changed everything. I'm 22, and since my teenage years, I've known I'm gay. It's a simple fact of who I am, not something I've ever hidden or made a big deal about. Back in high school, there was this girl, Sienna. She was a year older than me, effortlessly cool, magnetic in a way that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Sienna had a presence, a way of making everyone feel seen, like they mattered in a world that often made us feel small. She wasn't just someone I admired from a distance. She was someone I trusted. Amid the chaos of high school, she was a steadying force, someone who made everything seem a little less overwhelming. We weren't best friends, but there was a connection, a thread of understanding that made me feel like she saw the real me when few others did. Then life happened. I went off to college out of state, chasing new experiences and a fresh start. Sienna stayed local, carving out her path. The bond we shared faded into the background, reduced to sporadic holiday greetings and half-hearted birthday messages. It was the kind of drifting apart you don't notice until you realize how much distance has grown. This past December, everything changed. I was back home for the holidays, soaking in the comfort of family, the magic of the season. That's when my mom handed me a wedding invitation. Sienna's name was on it. Seeing her name stirred something in me, nostalgia, curiosity, maybe even excitement. The thought of reconnecting made my chest tighten in a way I couldn't place. I texted her immediately, congratulating her on her engagement. Her response came almost too quickly, like she had been waiting for me to reach out. She told me about Marcus, her fiancé, and how they'd been together for years. She sounded so happy, so eager to share her joy. Then came the unexpected invitation. Sienna asked me to join her for a pre-wedding girls' night on Christmas Eve. It wasn't just a casual suggestion. It felt like an olive branch, a chance to rebuild what time and distance had eroded. I found myself saying yes without hesitation. I didn't realize it at the time, but that invitation would set the stage for a night that would unravel more than just memories. It would expose truths that had been hidden for far too long and change everything. The party was everything you'd imagine a perfect Christmas Eve gathering to be: soft, golden lights casting a cozy glow, laughter bubbling in every corner, and the scent of mulled wine mingling with the faint aroma of pine. It felt like a night where nothing bad could touch us. Sienna was the star of the evening. She looked radiant, her smile lighting up the room as effortlessly as the twinkling Christmas lights. When she pulled me aside, she grinned and said, "I'm so glad you're here. It wouldn't feel right without you." Her words struck a chord in me, like a piece of our old friendship had quietly slid back into place. For the first time in years, it felt like we were reconnecting, not as distant memories, but as two people who truly knew each other. As the evening unfolded, the drinks flowed freely, and the conversations followed suit. The group settled into an easy rhythm of shared stories and laughter. Someone joked about their latest dating disaster, which spiraled into a round of playful oversharing heartbreaks, awkward dates, and the kind of flings you only admit to after a few glasses of wine. Caught up in the warmth of the moment, I felt bold. The wine had taken the edge off my usual reservations, and the familiar comfort of Sienna's presence made me feel like I could share anything. "You guys have to see this guy I've been hooking up with," I laughed, pulling out my phone. I passed it around with a mischievous grin, proud of my latest fling. The group's energy didn't falter at first. There were the usual teasing comments and exaggerated gasps of approval, but when the phone reached Sienna, everything changed. Her laughter faded, replaced by sharp stillness. Her hand froze midair, gripping the phone like it held something toxic. Her wide eyes darted between the screen and me, searching for an explanation I couldn't yet provide. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled, barely cutting through the noise of the room. "Why do you have a picture of Marcus?" The question hung in the air like a bombshell. My stomach twisted, a sickening knot forming as realization dawned. I stammered, "Wait, Marcus?" Sienna's expression told me everything I needed to know before she said another word. Her fiancé, the man I had been seeing, completely unaware. The room felt colder, the festive glow dimmed by the weight of what I had just inadvertently revealed. The laughter and warmth were gone, replaced by suffocating silence. In that silence, the fragile foundation of trust I had unknowingly stepped on began to crumble. My heart stopped. Marcus? Her fiancé? It felt like a punch to the gut, like the very air had been knocked out of me. Everything around me blurred, and I could hardly make sense of what was happening. My mind scrambled to piece it all together. "Sienna, no," I whispered, the words faltering. "That's not, he can't be." But even as I said it, I knew the truth. Her eyes told me everything. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. The horror in her gaze confirmed it. Marcus, the man I had been seeing, was the man she was supposed to marry. A sharp silence cut through the room. Sienna's world shattered. Her voice, once warm and full of joy, now cracked with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Her words hit me like a slap to the face. "How could you? How could you do this to me?" I opened my mouth to speak, to explain, to make sense of it all, but my voice faltered. "Sienna, please. I had no idea," I pleaded, my voice shaky. "I didn't know Marcus was engaged, let alone to you." "Me?" The words tumbled out in a desperate rush. "I met him over the summer. It was just a fling, a casual thing. He never told me he was seeing anyone seriously, let alone that he was engaged to you." But Sienna wasn't listening. Her face was a mask of hurt and fury. The shock of betrayal was evident in every feature. She didn't want to hear my explanation. She didn't care about the details. And honestly, I couldn't blame her. In her shoes, I would have felt the same way. The room fell silent. The merry atmosphere was gone, replaced with a thick, suffocating tension. Sienna's voice cracked through the silence. "Get out." Her eyes were wild with grief and anger. The room was still. Her friends stared at me, their eyes full of judgment. The weight of it was unbearable. I stood frozen, my chest tight, my heart pounding in my ears. The reality of what I had done set in, and I couldn't move. Reluctantly, I took a step back, every part of me feeling like it was crumbling. My body trembled as I made my way toward the door. With each step, I knew I had destroyed a friendship I once cherished. The door slammed behind me with a finality that felt like the end of something irrevocable. I woke up the next morning, my head pounding, not just from the wine, but from the weight of everything that had happened. My phone buzzed incessantly, a stream of missed calls and texts lighting up the screen. Marcus had confessed, not just about me, but about others, 8 others. Over the course of their relationship, Marcus had cheated with multiple men. The truth had come crashing down, shattering Sienna's world. I was part of that painful revelation, though I never meant to be. The wedding. It was off. Saturday in the aftermath, lost in guilt and regret, wishing I could undo what had happened. But I knew, deep down, there was no going back. Christmas is supposed to be a time for love, forgiveness, and togetherness, but for me, it became a time of reflection. The betrayal I experienced, and the hurt I caused, was a reminder that actions have consequences, and that sometimes the cost of a single mistake is more than we can ever imagine. But with time, and perhaps a little healing, I hope we all find a way to rebuild, not just friendships, but trust. Trust in ourselves and others, because it's the one thing that, once broken, can be the hardest to restore.